Is there any questions about any of the practices from today? Shamatha or Vipassana?
Regarding resting in awareness, would it be beneficial to do that practice with like when I'm going home and I'm doing the practice? Should I do it with the senses as well, or just focus with just the mind? I mean, visual, auditory as well, because we tried that as well.
Oh, you mean like instead of observing the mind, you do the open awareness?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, the open awareness practice is a good practice. But again, if we are wanting to really go much deeper into the shamatha path, then we probably need to narrow down. But certainly to go home and practice that and become familiar with it would be a very good thing to do, because this is what we want to do in daily life. No? So very good.
My question is two parts. One is like a general trend, and the other one is more practical. So, I sort of feel like I developed maybe a slight aversion, perhaps, to meditation.
That's entirely possible. Of course. It's an ongoing
sure.
Thing, because our normal sort of craving and attachment, or if you want to use the word ego, doesn't like meditation.
No.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's not part of the plan of attachment or the ego to meditate. That's really, we don't want to do that.
Go back to questions.
So it's like leave it there. No, I mean.
I think everybody's laughing because everybody's saying the same.
Should I like maybe just relax? Like I think about the day after day, 2 days after day 9. So should I just how should I look at this retreat? Like how should I look at this experience? Maybe I should like take it easy for a few days, or
well, I mean, of course.
I want to be enthusiastic. I want to
Sure. And if you're fighting against that, then it's just going to be more agitation. So we just need to really shift, like I said, shift our worldview, because what's not liking meditation is our worldview that the happiness and suffering's out there, and I need to get more stuff, and I don't want to be sitting here meditating. I need to get out and get that stuff. So we need to slowly start shifting that view, I think, because then we can really let go of that obsessive craving for that stuff there, and then we can be more into the meditation. But again, we don't want to be fighting, but at the same time not letting into it, giving into it. So you need to find a middle way and to shift your perspective, to shift the view, but that'll take time. But certainly, normally when people do a course or retreat or something, often, they get something out of it and they're all very enthusiastic, which is good. But what we don't want to do is then sort of go full steam ahead and push and do another course and so forth. Then we just sort of burn ourselves out. So we need to sort of go forward in a sustainable way, with enthusiasm, of course.
Maybe also there's so much meditation that we do every day that it is like a false representation of reality, of real life. Like in day-to-day life,
right.
I won't be doing that much.
Right, but the idea here, of course, is in these days we're trying to learn and practice as many variations as possible, so we have to fit them all in. That's fine. But then within those, then you pick one that sort of suits you or resonates with you, and then you do that as your daily practice, and then you do as much daily practice as you can. I mean, and I think, and I'm going to give some advice about that on day 10, but I mean, I think the first step is not to think, okay, I'm going to meditate for 2 hours every day or something. I mean, it's too difficult for most of us to start there. So the first thing is just to develop the habit. So don't sort of go gung-ho and think I'm going to do a lot of meditation every day. If you've not done that before, it won't work, because you'll manage it maybe for a few days or a week, and then you'll give up. So rather, just start small, very small. You can start 10 or 15 minutes, no problem. And the thing is just to start the habit. Just to start the habit. That's the key, is to start the habit. Once you start the habit, then you can slowly build on it over time. But if you dive in there and try and do like an hour a day or so, and you've never meditated, I think you're not going to be able to sustain that, because it's too difficult, and then you'll give up altogether. So we want to start. Of course, you need to put some effort and you need some continuity, but it needs to be sustainable, and that's why also I was mentioning in the last session that to really begin this, we need support, we need help, we need Sangha. I mean, if you go home and think, I'm going to do it on my own, my experience in talking to many people, it's very difficult, if not impossible. We need help. So if we can get a bit of help, then we get a bit of encouragement, a bit of support, then we can start to do something. So, these things we have to think about.
A little bit like what you asked yesterday, with the murmuring.
Yeah.
But when I practice resting in awareness, so there is something a bit confusing there about being aware is including these things. You know what I mean? Or not at all? I don't know.
No, there is. In the breath or the mind practice, we're aware of the breath, we're aware of the mind. And of course, when we're aware of the breath, then of course there's all sorts of thoughts and things still there, but we're not paying attention to them. And we're aware of the mind, then of course we have also other distractions that we're, sensory objects that we're not paying attention to. They're there, but we're not paying attention to them. And then what we're doing in the awareness practice is we're turning awareness in upon itself, which means now the only thing we're focusing on is an awareness itself. Of course there's still thoughts and sounds and everything there.
It's like around or in the...
Yeah, but we're not paying attention to them as much as possible, just knowing that we're aware. I mean, they'll be there, but just let them be there.
Yeah.
Of course. And of course as a beginner we'll get caught up a little bit, for sure, of course. But then let it go and just come back and stay there, and then let them be there. And just the more we rest in awareness and the more we develop stability and clarity with respect to that, the less those things will impinge on us. And then, in fact, in the higher stages, of course, the mind will go very quiet. But you'll notice that now the analogy that Alamolis gave was like the radio station. Now if you're trying to rest in awareness, it's like we lose the channel altogether and we get caught up in something. And then the next stage is you lose the channel mostly, means you're sort of in a thought, but you're still sort of knowing that you're aware, a little bit in the corner of the mind. And then you lose the station a little bit, means you're mainly in the awareness and you're sort of noticing that a little bit. And then you're straight on the station, which means you're not noticing any of that stuff. But that'll take time. I mean, that's a whole process. That's all the stages there.
I see that what helped me with awareness and thought and everything, it's where physically my attention is. Like, if it's here, or up and down, and it helps me, but I think it's like I want to help, like where to concentrate with my inside, like where I did the awareness, I concentrate all around me, like I don't know, something that I think this helps me to concentrate on, I don't know if it's physical, but it's
You mean you're grounding yourself in some physical location?
Kivun, yes. Direction on the physical, on the merchab.
Space, yeah. I mean, of course, the mind is not, and the mental events are not physically located anywhere.
I know, but still, it's like, for me, it's like...
Grounding.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've been looking at all different sorts of grounding techniques as a beginner to help us stay grounded, going into the rhythm of the breath and so forth, so that's okay. But you'll find that as you go deeper into the practice, that will, if you have that sense of physical locality, it will become an obstacle at some point instead of a grounding effect. So, you know, we need to realise that all of these sort of techniques of grounding and so forth may have some benefit in the beginning stages, but slowly we'll need to let them go. And so I think for this it can be helpful. I found very helpful is to meditate in a completely dark room with the eyes open. And then if your body goes very quiet, you really start to lose this sense of physical location, because the visual is not indicating anything. And if your body is very calm and quiet, you don't have a strong sense of the body, then you can really just be in this open, spacious awareness without any physical location. So that would be good.
Even if I concentrate on the space,
the physical space, but then you're using your eyes.
No, not the eyes, my senses, my...
Yeah, but physical space is using the senses again. So again, it could, if it helps you not to get caught up and so forth, it grounds you a bit, that's okay, but again, we'll need to slowly let that go and then just be in the awareness. Otherwise it will become an obstacle at some point to do that. So it's a cost benefit, like grounding in the rhythm of the breath, to observe thoughts or to rest in awareness. I mean, it could be helpful to avoid getting caught up, but it'll become a hindrance eventually because it's physical. It's an appearance.
I wanted to ask if smiling is legal.
Legal?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm stabilizing the posture.
Sure.
At the end, I'm deliberately having an inner smile. Doesn't have to show outside.
Sure.
But an inner smile, and it generates a feeling of love and kindness and compassion.
Right. Fantastic.
And so it's very soothing and relaxed. And then I start whatever.
Absolutely.
So
wonderful.
Is it legal?
Legal. Yes. Recommended.
Recommended. Okay, inner smile.
I'm confused about the awareness and meditation because I think we learn 3 kinds: the still, the movement, and the open awareness. Right?
You mean the mind practice?
No, the awareness.
There's only one awareness practice, resting in awareness. Knowing that you're aware, stillness, that's the only awareness practice.
No, but once we did the still one, then we did the still one, and then we did watching the movement of the mind.
Yeah, well, so that's the mind practice.
But it was in the awareness.
It's combining the two. Combining the 2 practices of resting in stillness, observing the movements. So that's 2 practices together.
And then the open awareness.
So the open awareness is just the mind practice expanded out.
So awareness is only one practice.
There's one practice, just resting in awareness, that's right.
Still.
Stillness of awareness, awareness. You can call it a number of different names, it's just one practice.
Speaking of legal, of playing the flute.
Playing the flute.
Playing the flute or making jewelry. And sometimes when I finish it, it feels like I was in a meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I consider it
Yeah, I mean, any practice we do with focus in with a calm mind is meditation. Yeah, sure.
But there is no intention of being...
No, I mean, what you'll find is that as we go deeper into this sort of meditation practice, you'll just naturally slip into that mode in daily life and back into meditation. It won't become like meditation daily life. It'll be more or less the same. I mean, a little bit less in terms of intensity and so forth, but you'll I mean, that's the idea, is to bring what we're meditating on, bring it into daily life, and then back into meditation. And so, you know, find that the deeper you get into the practice, the difference between meditation and daily life will get less and less. It'll be more fluid. I mean, we saw that in this Shamatha chart, you know, at the higher stages here, stage 8 and 9, you really are just flawlessly going in and out of meditation all the time.
First, I would like to tell something. May I?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
I would like to say something.
Say something, yeah.
It's about there is a meditation, there is a retreat.
There is
a meditation, there is a retreat.
retreat.
And they are not so. They can come together, but retreat is not a meditation. Or if we do not like the retreat, it doesn't mean we cannot do meditation or we cannot like meditation. I'm sharing from my experience. The first days, I felt like I entered a
Jail. Prison.
And I really had to. You're talking about benefits. I used it.
Sure.
Why did I leave my girls, my husband, my
Sure.
meditation?
Sure,
my
sure,
meditation
sure.
group? Why did
Sure.
I do it? So I had to remind myself
Yes.
why I did it.
Hmm.
Because it really has benefits.
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course. Yeah.
Short term, maybe not immediately.
Okay. Good.
And secondly, today I met something new.
You met
Something new by practice.
Mm-hmm.
When I started meditation because of physical pain
Mm-hmm.
many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I was listening to the sensation of pain a lot of years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very strong pain.
Mm-hmm.
And today I met something different.
Mm-hmm.
No, pain left. I met it's like I gave my attention to part of the body,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just there,
Mm-hmm.
just being without doing anything. It was completely different
Experience.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if we can really just be present without the
No, never mind. Mine was never my problem. But there are two types of, I experienced two types of feeling my body. One is like I'm going inside with my breath in, breath out. It's more doing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's painful. Even I don't have any pain appears.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going really inside. Like
Sure,
inside
sure.
my organs.
Sure.
And today, with your instruction, I was just outside. I was just next to, like, listening in
Mhm.
silence to a child,
Mhm.
someone.
Mm-hmm.
Just open to hear, but not doing anything.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. This evening's topic, maybe since we have a bit of time, I'd like to just briefly go over first the Shamatha stages first, briefly. So we look at these 9 stages to Shamatha chart. Because here we have the 2 models, the 9-stage model and the 4-stage model, sort of mapped on together. So we can just very quickly go through some of this here so we understand, and this I think can be helpful. So stage 1 here is called directed attention, and so what we achieve here is that we're able to direct our attention to the object. So we make progress simply by being able to focus on the object for 1 or 2 seconds. And then how we get there is by learning the instructions. We apply the instructions. So what problems persist? is that there's no attention or continuity on the object. Means we can't focus on it more than a couple of seconds and we're distracted all the time. And then the intentional imbalance here, coarse excitation, of course, is complete distraction. We're completely distracted. The type of mental engagement, it says focused, means we need to put a lot of effort to even focus on the object. So that's what focus means. We need effort just to focus on the object at all. The quality of the experience is movement. We notice a lot of things going on in the mind. And the involuntary thoughts here, remember, is like the other and out, the four-stage model, that first we notice a waterfall of thoughts crashing down in the mind. Then at the second stage here, continuous attention, it says here what we achieve is now we have some continuity on the object, whereas at stage one we had no continuity. Now we can focus on the object maybe up to a minute or two and we get distracted. And so we do that by thinking about the practice more and we're getting into the practice. But the problem that persists is that most of the time the attention is still not on the object, meaning we're distracted still for long periods of time. Again, so coarse excitation, we're distracted a lot. Again, focused engagement, meaning we need to put a lot of effort to focus, even to stay on the object. The experience is still one of a lot of movement, and again, like a waterfall of thoughts crashing down still. Then by stage 3, resurgent attention, what we've noticed now is that we're not, like at the second stage, distracted most of the time. Most of the time now we are on the object, and only very briefly are we off the object. And now the power that we achieve that by is mindfulness, because our mindfulness is getting a lot better. Now we can stay on the object most of the time. And if we get distracted, we quickly come back. But still, we forget the object for small periods of time. So that's the fault that still persists. And the intentional imbalances, still coarse excitation, meaning we still get distracted, but only for brief periods of time now. But now, since we're mostly on the more on the object than distracted, the type of engagement is called interrupted, meaning now we are mostly on the object, but we are interrupted a little bit in that engagement on the object. But still, we have a lot of movement, still a lot of thoughts going on, so it's still like a waterfall of thoughts. Stage 4 now, we overcame the fault at stage 3 of being distracted. Now we can stay on the object the entire session without completely losing it. So mindfulness is getting a lot better. But at stage 4, there's still some complacency regarding the practice. We're still a little bit complacent with regard to the practice. But now the imbalance is this medium excitation, meaning we're not completely losing the object, but we can be mostly disengaging from it, so that it's only on the periphery, the breath. And again, interrupted, so our quality of our attention is interrupted. Now, instead of the quality of the experience being one of a lot of movement, now it's achievement, meaning we're really now starting to really get into the practice, and we really are much more than a beginner now. We're really starting to achieve some progress, good progress in this practice. And now, instead of a waterfall of thoughts crashing down, it's more like a fast-flowing river of thoughts. Then when we go to stage 5, we overcome that complacency. Now we have a lot of satisfaction. We have a lot of enthusiasm, satisfaction in the practice. And now the power that we achieve this is by more and more closer introspection. But still at stage 5 we have some resistance to the practice, and we're still stuck in the medium laxity and medium excitation. Therefore our attention is still interrupted by those. Again, the sense of the quality of the experience is one of achievement, and it's still like a waterfall, like a river, fast-flowing river of thoughts there. Then at stage 6, now we've overcome any resistance to training, so we have no resistance to the mind engaging in the training. Again, the power of introspection. And here, what problems persist is the desire, depression, lethargy, drowsiness. So these are still affecting the meditation, these mental afflictions here. So we have medium laxity, but now the excitation is less subtle excitation, which means now we're more completely on the object and only a little bit of the distraction, not full distraction, but there's murmurings in the background now rather than the foreground. Still, so we're still interrupted by those. Again, the quality of achievement is the experience. Now the amount of mental events is slowing down, so now it's much more like a slow-moving river. And then at stage 7, we've pacified these mental afflictions which were causing a disturbance, so the attachment and lethargy and so forth have subsided to a large extent. Now, therefore, we have the power we achieve this by is enthusiasm. We have a lot of joy in the practice, but still what persists is that we still have some subtle imbalances in the practice. So there's still some subtle agitation, subtle dullness still persists. And then again, so still interrupted because those subtle excitation, subtle dullness, laxity is still there. We're still, our attention is still interrupted. But now the quality of our experience is one of familiarity. We're becoming very, very familiar in this practice. But still we have some, it's like a slow-moving river of thoughts moving through the mind, less and less. Then when we get to stage 8, of course, we have no longer any subtle imbalances in the practice, so we're without those. So and of course still the power of enthusiasm. We need to put a little bit of effort here to start the practice, and then we flawlessly practicing. But here it says the latent impulses for subtle laxity and excitation. So even though they're not present anymore, the potential for them to rise is still there, so that still persists. Now, because they no longer arise, the quality of our mental engagement now is uninterrupted. Our engagement is not interrupted at all by any subtle agitation, subtle laxity. And now, of course, because of that, the quality of our experience is one of stillness. And so here we see the analogy of the still lake or ocean. And then in the 9th stage, now, of course, everything becomes completely effortless and spontaneous. And now the power that is achieved is familiarity. And then what persists is, of course, these imbalances still may occur at some future time if we don't continue the practice. And so the intentional imbalances is that the causes for those are still there but in a dormant state. And now everything, the engagement becomes effortless, spontaneous, and the quality of the experience is said to be one of perfection. So it's using this another analogy that now mind is very, very still, like this king of mountains. So that is very briefly the 9 stages, correlating particularly with this 4-stage model. Any last questions about that before we move on to the Vipassana model?
I'm puzzled because a few minutes ago you said that the person who is in stage 9, he can be like post-meditation. Meditation is the same.
Well, not the same, but you can flow in and out of those states. So you don't maintain that level of attention when you're outside of meditation, but you maintain a high degree of clarity and stability, and you can move in and out of those, slip in and out of meditation effortlessly.
And how does it go together with what you said yesterday, that the senses are closed in this degree?
Because when you go into meditation, you're in a much deeper state, so then the senses shut down. And then when you come out, they're operating again. So you maintain a lot of that stability and clarity, but it's not equivalent. It's not an equivalent state.
In the Vipassana practice, I noticed that when I ask myself the question that the talking is only in one half of my head over here, and the other half is completely silence. Whatever I will do, nothing.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
For example, I was asking myself, where is the one that is observing, and all these questions.
Right.
So the question rose here, and all the discussion was here. This was my
Okay.
And the other half was like black, nothing, not murmur, nothing.
Okay.
So I was just wondering if to go to the higher stages is to bring this half like this one, but I think it's my personal soul.
I don't know, but I don't know if I can comment so much.
Black and nothing, silence completely.
Like